Yes, you saw the title. And unfortunately, that might be the case that PP405 doesn't seem like it's going to be the treatment we all were hoping that it was going to be. And admittedly, in the beginning, I hyped up the treatment. I thought it was going to be a ground-changing kind of hair loss medication. But unfortunately, I don't think that's the case at all. So, a lot of you have been asking questions as to why I haven't made any post talking about the PP405 dermatology conference that happened a couple months ago. It was a general dermatology conference, and the CEO of Pelage was there. He gave a presentation, and during this presentation, they had results of their clinical trial participants, and particularly, they focused on the treatment group for the most part, right? They are claiming that the treatment group saw an increase in hairs. But during this presentation, the photos that they showed of the people that had improvements, so to speak, there was something that was kind of, weird, that didn't sit right with me. And it's this whole entire pitch that they're trying to kind of give to the public, and that is in regards to the hair follicle unit. So for those of you who may not know, hair follicles may produce one or many hairs, anywhere between one, sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5, and on the very rare occasion, even up to 7 hairs. Some ethnic groups produce more hairs per hair follicle. And that hair follicle unit refers to the hairs that are coming out of that hair follicle, the number of, hairs coming into that unit of tissue. With that being the case, Pelage was trying to sell the fact, or I guess not the fact, but to portray it as if it was a fact, that PP405 was reactivating dormant follicular units. Now, obviously, with hair loss, you can lose hair in this general permutation that I'm going to describe. You either lose follicular units, where the number of follicular units you have decreases, but you still have your active follicular units are still producing the number of hairs that they would otherwise produce anyway. Or maybe you have the same number of follicular units, however, each follicular unit is downregulated in the amount of hairs that they're producing. And then the worst permutation out of the two that I described would be you have decreased follicular units along with having decreased number of hairs per follicular unit. And this would probably represent somebody who has a severe case of DUPA, that being diffuse unpatterned alopecia. Pelage's whole pitch is that, look, our treatment from these photos, it is increasing the number of follicular units. But when you look at the before or baseline pictures, they have all these little red circles all over the place. When you really look at the baseline photos and you zoom into these red circles that they're highlighting, you can see something pretty interesting. Those so-called dormant hair follicles, you see a slight shadow, a fade of a line underneath the skin, which indicates that these were follicular units that were already going to come out of dormancy. Because during the Anagen cycle, the Anagen hair growth cycle, your follicular units, your hair follicles, they go into dormancy. Even with people who have androgenetic alopecia, the hair count will fluctuate. During that downward curve, they'll have times where the hair count is higher. And that's not because, the androgenetic alopecia just suddenly turns off, but it's because you're going to have variations as the hair cycles. You have different hair follicles that are at rest. Some are at rest longer than others due to pathology. The pathology, in this case, being androgenetic alopecia, but still, they will periodically reactivate. And there will be a snapshot point in time where those hair follicles are active and producing hair, which will mean that you have more hair at that point in time. So when you look at the before, and if you zoom in on some of these circles that Pelage is claiming, there's no follicular units there, guys. Look, you zoom in, you can clearly, I don't want to say clearly, but the effort, if you make it, it'll be there. You'll see that there is a faint black, sort of opening. And this would be the follicular ostia, or follicular holes, right? The ostia in this case, they're not empty by any means. And because they're not empty, you have to ask the question, are these hair follicle units that would have been activated anyway? And if that's the case, did PP405 really do anything to activate these hairs? It's a really hard pitch to make here. We also have to take into account that, look, right now, I just got finished watching the World Cup match between Panama and Ghana won. Let's go. Obviously, I have my own bias. But, it's Wednesday, June 17th, 9:48 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in New York City. And the reason why I say this is because the Academy of Dermatology annual meeting that they had in Denver, Colorado, here in the United States, and this is the conference where Pelage showed these results. This occurred March 27th to March 31st, 2026. And the Pelage Pharmaceutical featured its specific presentation on PP405 on Saturday, March 28th, 2026 at 10:15 a.m. MST. And that would be the Mountain Standard Time. So it's been 2 months and 20 days exactly, 81 days, since Pelage presented this data, and yet we still don't have the hair counts between the treatment group and the placebo group. And the reason why that matters is because this will allow us to understand what PP405 is doing, yet Pelage Pharmaceuticals isn't offering this data, and I think it's for a very obvious reason. In my opinion, I think the sort of activated follicular units that they're trying to advertise, well, it wasn't due to PP405. There's not enough data to meaningfully suggest that PP405 was responsible for that. And again, when you look closely and look into the circles in the before picture, that in many of these patients that they're saying had this sort of activated follicular unit response, and keep in mind, they are going to cherry pick their best responders. They're circling follicular units that were already in the process of activating at baseline. So this doesn't mean that PP405, it's highly unlikely that PP405 is responsible for activating these follicular units. And I think they were, the subjects in this clinical trial, they were only using PP405 for about 2 weeks, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was something really, really short. So that's a bit of a doomeristic kind of take that I have. And I think it's all for a reason. And that reason is that they don't have encouraging data. Once again, this is the cherry-picked results, right? During this annual meeting, Pelage Pharmaceutical announced that 31% of the advanced androgenetic alopecia patients in their phase 2A trial achieved 20% increase in hair density by week 8, or I think they used it for 2 weeks and then they watched to see what would happen after they discontinued, something like that, right? But that's only 31%. So really, PP405 is a nothing burger. We don't have the hair counts to even make the argument that it did anything extraordinary. Even this whole follicular unit activation that the CEO of Pelage is talking about, it might be misleading, or they probably just don't have it right. In any case, that's the end of this video. But before we end the video, I want to let you guys know that I started an application, an online web app called TrichoLens. That's TrichoLens, and it's supposed to be an AI trichologist that my team and I have been working on. We've trained this model. We have various models, but we've trained some models on like 90,000 photos. We went through the task of, labeling specific conditions, specific macro pictures of scalps that have certain issues like lichen planopilaris, eczema, etc., etc. And we also have some pretty sophisticated tools when it comes to calculating hair width. All that you can try out for free on TrichoLens.com. You don't even have to sign in. You can use the free version on the webpage itself. Just try it out and see how, it is for you. Maybe you might get some novel sort of information. And again, it's like an AI trichologist that you can screen yourself at home with. And who knows, it can probably help you have more informed conversations with your doctor. So that's pretty much it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace out, guys.